Hi, this is Grioger from the Fantasy Grounds message boards. One of the questions I see a lot is, well, what if there's not a rule set for the game I want to play? Am I out of luck? The answer is no, you're not out of luck. There's a generic rule set available for Fantasy Grounds. And while if there is a built rule set for the game you want to play, you should probably use it. If there isn't a rule set, the generic rule set in many cases will do what you want. It'll roll dice for you. It has a character sheet that your players can input information on. It has a battle map, and you can put tokens on the map, move them around. And it has a very simple initiative tracker. I thought I'd walk through some of the features so you can make your own judgment. I've already connected a player to the host. Right now we're looking at the host. And so I thought I'd just walk through how the character sheet could be used by a player. So let's start off with what the generic rule set looks like. So here's the player, he's connected in. So we'll tell him to create a new character. So it jumps in, and you can see that it's unnamed. Unnamed, if he clicks on this, will open up. This is the generic character sheet. These are all basically just text boxes, and you can put in anything you want. Let's change his name to Test Guy. Alright. If we click off, you'll see Test Guy. And you can fill in any attributes, skills, and modifiers you want according to what game you want to play. I'm going to just enter a few of them. Strength, intelligence, wisdom, dexterity, constitution, and charisma. Okay, and then once you do that, you can input the attributes. You can click on it and type in, or you can roll the mouse wheel however you want. Alright, so what can you do once you get your stats in? The generic rule set allows you to put in any stats or anything else you want. So a lot of games, aside from having some sort of stats, they also have some skills. Maybe grid, nation, and so on. And depending on the system, whether it's 100 or some other dice system, you might have big numbers there, or you might have, if it's a modifier like these, they might be small numbers. So now, once you get your character sheet in, these are the stats and possibly skills. There's another thing down for weapons. I'm going to use basic D&D as an example here, because most people know that you roll D20s. And I'll call this longsword attack, and I'm going to say this guy has a +3 to hit bonus. So once you get the basic character sheet in, and there's another page where you can put inventory or whatever else you want. How would you use this in a game? One of the first things you might want to do is set up attacks, and possibly, by the way, you might want to do defenses as well on this generic character sheet. So you might want to do something like armor class. In this case, let's say it's 2, going back to old style. And you might want to put in what he's in. Alright, so how can you set up hotkeys? Hotkeys aren't used so much in the automatic rule sets because a lot of it's already automated for you. However, Fantasy Grounds has a large selection of hotkeys. Let me move it up so you can see the hotkey bar on the bottom. You can see there's 12 of them, but in fact there's really 96 of them. This is only the base one. If you hold down Shift, you'll get Shift. If you hold down Alt, you'll get some more. If you hold down Control, you get more. And you can hold down Shift and Alt and Shift, Control and Alt, and so on and so forth. So there's really 96 hotkeys. When I played a wizard, when I was using a lot of the hotkeys, I think I didn't use more than about 4 banks of them. So let's go ahead and show how you might set up an attack with this longsword. In this particular game, you roll a d20, and we want to add 3 to the attack, and it would be nice if the DM knew what this guy was attacking with and what the roll was for. So we start off by typing in dice. In this case, I'm going to go 1d20, and because this is a +3, and then you tell it what it's for. So we can do longsword. This is one way of doing it. I'm going to show you another way in a second. So I typed this in, and what this does, this is a one-time roll, see? But it would be nice to make this a hotkey, and one of the ways you can do that is if I can bring this back up, and if I drag and drop this down on the function key, when I press the function key, F1 in this case, it'll roll it and say, oh, it's a longsword. And in this case, you go, oh, gee, wouldn't it be nice if it said attack? I forgot the attack part. So let me drag it back up, edit it, ATK, and then I'll drag it right back down, and we'll press it again, longsword attack. Okay, and there's our +3. Now there's another way of doing this, because sometimes people like to roll dice. So instead of pressing a hotkey, you can, if I drag this in, notice how this whole thing drag and drops into the modifier box. Let's try it again. Got to drag the number. See the +3 mod? If I pick up a d20 and throw it, notice how it goes, longsword attack. It's also saying test guy because that's who this character is. So you can basically drag and drop these down into its modifiers to get the right modifier. So like if I was playing a game where you added strength to a dice roll, let's say 3d6, now I'll say +13 on the 3d6 strength because that's what was typed in there. So basically there's a great deal of flexibility to roll your dice however that game needs it and make any modifiers that you want. And you can hotkey this stuff, so all you got to do to make this attack, let's go ahead and finish out this guy's attack. I'm just going to make something over here so that you can do a manual mod, so I'm just going to go long sword damage, and this is really the mod, so I'm just going to put +2 in, say. This allows me to drag this and drop it in there, and then throw a D8, and there it is. It says what it is, and there's the mod. Now, the other thing, of course, you can do is you can drag this down to the hotkey, and if I press F2, notice how it loads the modifier box for me, and then I can also just throw the D8. If you prefer even more automations, you can actually make a dice code /die 1d8 plus 2 and go long sword attack. I'm sorry, long sword damage. And you can drag and drop this dice code down in here, and now if you press F2 it'll actually just roll it for you. Of course, the only problem is if your damage goes up you have to go in there and edit it, but it's easy enough to edit by dragging it out, changing the 2, say he gets a better weapon, dragging it back down, and then just press, there's the 3. Okay. So that's basically how you would set up a character sheet. Now you would go on and add your skills if you wanted. Let's just do a skill real quickly. Let's say in this particular game that you roll a d20 and you add whatever the mod is. So once again you could just drag it down, and for skills you may not want to hotkey it. Now when I used to use a lot of hotkeys, what I used to do is keep my combat hotkeys on the first row, and skills I put shift in. Okay. So if I were going to follow that, I might put grit here. Oops, let's try it again. So I got grit. So what I would do is I'd hold shift, press F1 to load it, and then throw the d20. Notice I can let go once the mod box is in there. Alright, so it tells me it was a grit roll, and that's what the actual roll is. Now the DM basically works the same way. I move over to the DM, notice how I can open up the test guide because the DM can always see all the character sheets. When the DM rolls though, one of the differences is that the DM's rolls by default are hidden. So if you can see, my longsword attack has a question mark, which is showing that the die roll is hidden to the player. If I bring back over my player screen, you can see that that longsword attack basically doesn't show up. However, when the DM does make a roll, the actual roll, the players will see a little shadow, which kind of symbolizes like the sound of dice behind the screen.